Hey guys, welcome back to Steel City Sports. So today I'm continuing our series of predicting every NFL game week by week. My season record right now is 106 to 53, so that's exactly a 2-to-1 ratio on my picks. So they say in betting, if you hit about 50 to 60% of your picks, you're doing something right. Well, I'm getting about 66% of my picks right, so maybe you might want to parlay some of these. No, I'm kidding. Do not bet my picks, but let's get into them right now. Starting off with Thursday Night Football. Tonight, of course, we have the Washington Commanders going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles in a really, really fun matchup. I think this is going to be a really good game. You have two teams right now. These are the teams vying for the division. We know the Cowboys, they've imploded. The Giants have 2 wins. They're a disaster. The division is going to come down to these two teams. And it looked like earlier in the season, the Commanders had a good league. However, the Eagles have been red hot lately. Jalen Hurts, the last 3 or 4 games, has been playing really at an MVP level. Ever since he got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back, Jalen Hurts has looked incredible thus far. We know how good Jay Daniels has played. He's not just one of the best rookies. He's legitimately one of the best players in the league this year. That is without a doubt, not arguable. So I think you're really getting a matchup here between 2 top 10 quarterbacks, 2 very talented teams. I think it's going to be a really fun one. I have to roll with the Philadelphia Eagles, though. I've been enamored by their roster this entire season. I've been willing to give the Eagles a lot of benefit of the doubt for that because I am just so fascinated by their roster. I think they're just so talented, particularly on offense, that it's led me to pick them a lot this year, and it's really paid off because they've been a pretty good team. Like I said, since Jalen's got his weapons back, he has been an elite-level player. So I think it will be fun. I could definitely see it being a shootout. I think Jaden Daniels really impressed me against my Steelers because when you look back at the Commanders' schedule, it's not like they've been playing the most, how do I say it? Like the most competitive of teams. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Commanders, but it's like they're not playing the most impressive teams and beating them. So when they matched up with my Steelers, I was like, this is kind of going to be a wake-up call for Jayden Daniels because he's going from playing like these soft defenses to going to play the best defense in the NFL. I was wrong about that because even though the Steelers won that game, Jayden Daniels was still really good in that football game. He did not look shook up at all by that Steelers defense. So Jayden Daniels has like the poise of a 10-year vet already as a rookie. I think he's already easily a top 10 quarterback. You could even argue higher than top 10. I've seen some people put him in the top 5 already, and I'm not really going to argue against that. He's a fucking stud. So this is a really fun matchup. 2 great quarterbacks, but I think it ultimately comes down to the fact that the Eagles just have more talent. I think that's what this is going to come down to. The Eagles win this one in Philadelphia, and I could see it being a shootout. Now we go to the Sunday slate of games. We have the Colts going to the Jets. Not a great matchup. Not a fun one to watch. I could really see this one going either way because both these teams are kind of a circus show right now. They're both kind of a mess. With the Colts, they benched Anthony Richardson in favor of Flacco because they said, hey, Flacco gives us a better chance to win this year. So even though this might hurt our long-term development of AR, we're trying to make the playoffs this year. And we think Flacco gives us the best shot to do that. Well, Flacco's first game named the starter after benching AR. He put up the worst offensive performance for the Colts this season, and then he lost again last week. So ever since he got named the starter as a quote-unquote win-now move, they lost both those games. So now a report came out that Anthony Richardson is now the full-time starter for the rest of the season. So this shows you that this coaching staff does not know what the hell they're doing in terms of who to play because both of them give you flashes here and there. Both of them are wildly inconsistent. When I'm talking about Flacco and Richardson, they're 2 very different style of quarterbacks. So I don't know. I do not envy Shane Steichen. It's a very difficult situation because both these guys are super flawed. Anthony Richardson is extremely inaccurate. Joe Flacco's 55 years old. So it's like, I don't know. They're going with Anthony Richardson. We will see if that's the right call here. The Jets, we've talked about them ad nauseum on this channel. They have a laundry list of issues with their football team. Their coach, you could argue, is the worst head coach in the NFL now. Their interim, Jeff Ulbrich. He's a defensive guy. Their defense got worse after he took over. The offense is a disaster. They got carved up. They got clamped by the Arizona Cardinals. And we're not, like, the Cardinals don't have some studs on defense either. They got Budda Baker and a bunch of nobodies. So I don't know what to do with either of these teams. I'm going with the Colts just for the simple fact that I cannot in good faith pick the Jets for how critical I've been of the Jets this year, for how much I just don't trust Aaron Rodgers anymore or this coaching staff. Even though the Colts have their own problems, they got a lot of issues as well. This really just comes down to who's the less of a dumpster fire right now, and I think that is the Colts. So give me the Colts in that one. Next up, we have a massive divisional matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and my Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the Steelers' first in-divisional game. This is Week 11. Week 11, and this is the Steelers' first in-division game. I think that we've talked about that a lot, too, on this channel, about how our schedule was made. It's very bizarre, but I cannot wait for this one. I am, of course, going with the Steelers in this one, and it's not just a Yinzer bias. I want to read you off some stats here that point to why I think the Steelers are going to win this game. Not only is it in Pittsburgh, but I got these numbers provided by Steelers Fans 7 on Instagram. So he's a great page to follow if you're a Steelers fan. Big shout out to him. I got these stats from his post today. So this is Lamar Jackson. Versus the Steelers, Lamar Jackson's career record is 1-3. Versus everyone else in the NFL, he's 64-19. Baltimore's points per game in the Lamar Jackson era against the Steelers is 19.8. Versus everyone else, it's 29.1. So there's a 10-point drop-off in the Ravens' offense when Lamar plays the Steelers. That's a big, big gap. Let's look at Lamar's pass touchdown to interception ratio versus the Steelers. 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions versus everyone else. 144 pass touchdowns to 40 interceptions. Lamar's passer rating versus the Steelers is 66.3 versus everyone else. It's 103. So what does this tell you? This tells you the Pittsburgh Steelers have very well identified what Lamar Jackson does well. They've scouted him well. They know how to play against Lamar Jackson. And if there's any unit, if there's any team in the National Football League that can slow down Lamar Jackson, it's the Steelers. And the stats I just read you bear that fact. And this is the best the defense has looked in the TJ Watt era. So Lamar's already struggled against our team in years prior. Now I think we have a better defense and a competent offense, something we haven't had in years. And another thing against the Ravens is their defense is kind of a mess this year. You know, it was historically great last year. They lost some guys. They lost their defensive coordinator. It just hasn't been the same. And when you look at the Ravens, like, they're the most penalized defense in the entire league right now. To think that the Ravens, of all teams with their defensive culture, that's a true stat. Look it up. The Ravens are the most penalized defense in the National Football League. So I'm going with the Steelers here. I don't think it's just a Yinzer bias. I think there's a lot of evidence that would point to the Steelers winning this one. Let's move on. Minnesota going to Tennessee. Give me the Vikings that one. Even though Sam Darnold is really starting to worry me the past 2 games, he's looked really bad. And I asked the question in my Week 10 reaction, are we seeing Sam Darnold go back to being Sam Darnold? I don't know. We got to see how the season finishes out. If they were playing a better team, I would maybe even lean towards that team with how Darnold's playing now. But the Titans are such a fucking joke that can't pick them. No matter what the situation is, you just can't roll with the Titans. Next up, we have a real toilet bowl dumpster of a match between the Cleveland Browns, not a match, a game, between the Browns and the Saints. This was a tough one for me to really pick out of these 2 teams. 2 teams I've been hypercritical of for good reason this year. I don't know. I ended up going with the Browns for the simple fact that they do a lot of stuff well. The biggest thing holding them back this year clearly was Deshaun Watson. And Jameis, was really bad against the Chargers, but I also watched Deshaun Watson beat the Baltimore Ravens. And the New Orleans Saints, obviously, nowhere near the caliber of team that the Ravens are. So, whereas with the Saints, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how anyone could put any faith in the Saints. I get it. They just won. I kind of attribute that more so to the fact that anytime your head coach gets fired, your locker room usually gets like this jolt of energy to kind of play up for the interim. I do not see that continuing, just given how limited this team is, given the fact that Derek Carr is the quarterback. I don't trust Derek Carr whatsoever. So it's a rough matchup. I'm going with the Browns, though. Next, we have Jacksonville at Detroit. I'm not spending any time on this. Detroit's a 13-point favorite. Give me the Lions. Enough said. Next, we have a divisional matchup, Packers at Bears. So I just put out 2 shorts about why the Bears are such a disaster this year. Really stems from their organizational flaws. Their management doesn't really know what the fuck they're doing. The coaching staff sucks. They just fired their OC. The Bears are a mess. And it's really disappointing. It's a team I was really high on. I picked them to be the last wild card spot in the NFC. I had a lot of high hopes for them. And it wasn't just because Caleb. It was also because the roster moves they made, bringing in Keenan Allen, having DJ Moore, bringing in Rome Odunze, trying to invest on that O-line. They have a good defense. So it's like this team had a lot of potential, but it's clear they're a mess. Their coaching staff's a disaster. They're all getting fired. Every single coach on this team will be fired after this season. I can't in good faith pick them to beat a team as good as the Green Bay Packers. Even though the Packers, I do have some problems with them. I do think Jordan Love's a little reckless for my taste, but I can't trust the Bears. Give me the Packers. Next, we have Raiders at Dolphins. Give me the Dolphins in this one pretty easily. The Dolphins just had actually a pretty impressive win Monday night against the LA Rams, because something we've talked about for at least a year plus now on this channel is the Dolphins typically don't win big games. I've compared them to the Cowboys. I've said in the past they're the Cowboys of the AFC. Really flashy team, beat up on bad teams, but can't win big games. Well, they just beat the Rams in prime time. The Rams were a playoff team this year. The Rams could just as well be a playoff team this year whenever they're healthy. One of the most lethal offensive units in the league with Kupp, Puka, Stafford, Kyron. Really good offense. And the Dolphins beat them in prime time. So I give the Dolphins a lot of credit for that. With Tua back, they're obviously a capable team. And the Raiders are just a clown show like they always are. So give me the Dolphins there pretty soundly. Next up, we have the Super Bowl 53 rematch between the Rams and the Patriots. That was the worst Super Bowl I've ever watched back in 2019, I believe. And I'm not even joking. I'm not saying this for dramatic effect. I actually fell asleep during that game. That Super Bowl 53 match between the Rams and Patriots. And I didn't miss anything. It was a terrible game, but obviously very different teams now. A lot's changed. The Rams should crush the Patriots, but I do give the Patriots a lot of credit. They're definitely better than what I thought they'd be this year. I said they're going to be easily the worst team in the league. They're not that because Drake May. Ever since they put Drake May in, their offense has shown a pulse. Drake May looks like he is really going to work in the NFL. They get him a line. They get him some receivers. Drake May is going to be really good. So the Patriots, they're scrappy. I give them their credit, but the Rams should soundly win this one. They just have a better overall team. They have the coaching advantage. They should crush them. Next, we have Atlanta at Denver. Kind of an under-the-radar good game. This is a sneaky good game because both of these teams are, I would kind of consider in the same tier at this point in time. The Broncos have really impressed me. I was really critical of them in the offseason. They've impressed me. I still don't know 100% how I feel about Bo Nix. I think he's really inconsistent. I just don't know how to feel about Bo Nix one way or another. And the Falcons, they're coming off a pretty ugly loss to the New Orleans Saints. So I don't know. I mean, the Falcons, they don't have a whole lot of pressure on them because the rest of their division is a disaster right now. With the big receiver injuries to Tampa, they don't need to worry about the Bucs. And obviously the Saints and the Panthers are going to be vying for the number 1 overall pick. So the Falcons, they kind of already have their division on lock, barring a massive injury. So it's not like the Falcons have a whole ton of pressure on them, whereas I think the Broncos actually do because they are trying to get into that wild card spot. And we're seeing that wild card race in the AFC is really starting to heat up. The Chargers are going to be in there. Whoever doesn't win the AFC North between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they're going to be a wild card team. You got a bunch of teams out there that are trying to get in there. So Denver, their backs are kind of against the wall in this one. But I can't I can't pick Bo Nix. I just can't do it yet. So give me the Falcons. I might come back to regret this one because I think this is actually, like I said, a sneaky good game. I have to go with Atlanta here, but I don't love that pick. Next up, we have divisional matchup between the Seahawks and the 49ers. They obviously played earlier this year on Thursday night, where I foolishly picked the Seahawks to win that game. That ain't happening again. The 49ers own Geno Smith. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. I thought Geno was playing the best version of his style of play earlier in the year. That's kind of what led me to pick them because Geno, people forget really quickly, the first 3-4 weeks of the season, Geno Smith was like legitimately in MVP talks. That's not me saying that. That was the betting markets. That was people on ESPN. He was like actually an MVP candidate earlier in the year. That's why I picked them to beat San Fran. That was also in the midst of San Fran having a collection of injuries, Brock Purdy not playing well. All the momentum's on the side of the Niners. Not only have they beaten the Seahawks earlier in this year, they've crushed Seattle in this couple-year stretch here. And on top of that, they're getting a lot healthier. They got their guys back. They have Christian McCaffrey back. Purdy's playing good again. You'd have to be a fool to pick the Seahawks in this situation. I really believe that. And it's in San Fran, so give me the Niners. Next is the big matchup, our rematch from last year's AFC divisional round. The Kansas City Chiefs go into Buffalo to play the Bills. These are, the 1A, 1B of the AFC of the past couple of years. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this game. There's going to be a ton of people watching this football game because it's not even really a rivalry, but it's like this always just has a big feel to it when these two teams play. The massive game. It kind of surprises me that they didn't put this one as the night game, but yeah, this is a big, big game. And this is the second time of the season where the Chiefs are actually underdogs. If you remember back when they played the Niners, they were underdogs. They're underdogs here whenever they're playing the Bills in Buffalo. So another situation where you can get plus money on the Chiefs. There's rumblings maybe Pacheco could play. I don't think he will. I'm thinking Pacheco probably makes his return next week, but I have to go with the Chiefs here. Like, how could you not? They have psychologically owned the Bills in this Mahomes-Allen era. Like, you'd have to be certifiably insane to pick the Buffalo Bills in this one. I know a lot of people are. Vegas is picking the Bills to win this one. But if you remember, last year in the playoffs, the Bills were favored in that matchup as well, and they blew it yet again. How can you, in your right mind, pick the Buffalo Bills to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? I have to see it to believe it, to ever believe the Bills can do that. I cannot in good faith do that. I think the Chiefs psychologically own the Bills. So even though it's in Buffalo, even though they're two really, really good teams, I cannot pick against the Chiefs in this spot. Next up, we do have our Sunday night game, and it actually is a pretty good one. It's not as good as Chiefs-Bills, but it's still a good matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Chargers. The battle of the 2020 quarterbacks. Burrow went number 1 in that draft. Herbert went number 6 in that draft. So kind of cool matchup there. I'm actually going to go with the Bengals in this one. Really for the simple fact that I think it comes down to the Bengals are... We've talked about this ad nauseum. If you are a listener, longtime listener of the channel, you know what I'm about to say here. As the year goes on, the Bengals seem to play their best football. Down the stretch, they seem to get red hot at the right time. And I feel like this is the point in time where that's going to start happening. It's now or never because they're 4-6. They need to start stringing some wins together here. I think they're going to get a quality win against the Chargers here. And we've talked a lot about how bad their defense has been, but I saw today that they're actually the least penalized defense in the NFL. That really, really shocked me as a stat. So the coaching is working there. The defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. I believe it's Lou Anarumo. Or is that the Browns coordinator? I don't know. But no, it is Lou Anarumo. Jim Schwartz is the Browns. Yeah, so really capable defensive coordinator. I think he's working, he's doing a lot with not a whole lot of talent on that unit. They just give up a lot of points. But it's not like the Chargers offense is that dynamic. We know what the Chargers offense is. It's a very run-heavy, orchestrated offense. And they ask Herbert to not do a whole lot. So I could see this. I could see the Bengals controlling this game. And I don't know. I have a hunch. I'm taking the Bengals in this one. Then we have Monday Night Football. You could see when the schedulers were making the season that they thought this was going to be a really good matchup because it's the Battle of Texas. You have the Texans at Cowboys. If Dak wasn't hurt, this would be an interesting matchup. It would be a fun one, but Dak is gone, so this game's going to suck. It really is. And, we saw this a lot last year with quarterbacks getting hurt, and a lot of primetime games were terrible. This is just bound to happen. If Dak was playing, this would be an interesting game. He ain't playing. It's not going to be fun to watch. I think the Texans, they're getting Nico Collins back in this game. They should crush the Cowboys. There's absolutely, positively no excuse for the Texans in this one. The Cowboys are a shit show right now. They don't have a quarterback. Their defense has been a disaster this whole year. All their coaches are probably getting fired after this season. The Texans, after, really one of the most humiliating losses I've seen in recent memory, them blowing that lead to the Lions. CJ's been playing terrible the past couple of weeks. They need to come out here and make a big statement win, really just put their fucking foot down the throat of the Dallas Cowboys and make a big statement win, show, yeah, we are still an elite team, especially with Nico Collins returning. So I got the Texans in that one. That has been it for my Week 11 predictions. So definitely let me know down in the comments some of your favorite predictions for the week. Let me know how your NFL team is doing this year. And if you made it this far in the video, appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe.